Welcome, everybody. I'm here today with my friend and the very talented Celeste Gotell. Celeste is the project consultant with the Mind Body Spirit program. So, welcome, Celeste.
Well, thank you. And thank you for such a kind introduction.
Well deserved. Um, so now, I imagine many people have seen the Mind Body Spirit program over the years because it was done,
Mhm,
a few years ago. So,
mhm.
can you tell us more about the Mind Body Spirit program and who was it for initially?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, people have probably heard about the Mind, Body, and Spirit project, which was got underway in the fall of 2017. And it was a grant that had been received from Department of Health and Wellness, Mental Health and Addictions to develop a collaborative response to addressing seniors' mental health and addictions issues and social isolation issues for older adults in Richmond County. So the program got underway in 2017, somewhere around October, and it actually was a 2-year grant. So it went right through till December 2019. So for a period of 2 years, a number of programs took place within Richmond County, and which we'll get into a little bit more in the toolkit, but it was intended to improve the overall health outcomes of older adults and also to look at the many different community partners that can provide some excellent service in that regard to support um, the more formal system, if you will, because a lot of times people don't need to access health; they just need to get support.
Yeah. Well, so you managed it actually was a very interesting project. I
Mhm.
worked on that myself.
That's
Um,
right. It was a
yeah,
very exciting project. It
yeah,
was multifaceted.
yeah, it
So
sure was.
the whole idea behind this project was to involve the entire community in ways to uh, look at programs and services that could be extended to support older adults. So Teleo was a case in point. They were one of the community partners involved in this project.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they did was to provide a series of television kind of components of it where people could actually be watching things on television with respect to how to take care of their mind, body, and spirit in terms of overall mental health. But it also included everything from offering workshops to a conference to a program with the Richmond Villa telling stories to uh, Richmond Literacy offering a seniors and technology program. It was so multifaceted that I couldn't, in the time that we have, I couldn't begin to tell you all the various components of it. So it was for this reason that when the project was completed, the Kingston Community Health Center, who was hosting the project, felt it was necessary to package all this information into a toolkit. And that's kind of why we're here today, because we're
Right.
getting ready to launch the toolkit, which is very exciting.
So, it with that being said, I can understand why you would need to launch a toolkit because you're right. I do remember it being multifaceted, and I remember actually some of that filming I did myself in studio and had a great time with it. Especially, I remember the yoga segment pretty
Mhm,
well.
mhm,
Um, and I know that a lot of the seniors really appreciated learning about technology because I think sometimes they felt kind of left behind and they were quite proud of themselves
mhm,
when they
mhm.
would accomplish that. So that was always
Yeah.
really nice to see.
Mhm,
So and it's kind of timely because of course COVID set in after that.
mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting that you should
yeah,
say that, Becky, because this program was kind of born, if you will, or its inception started way back in 2016. If you can
yeah.
imagine, there were a number of people that were working with older adults, myself included, and Josette, who was with the municipality at the time, folks with primary health care, many of our colleagues that were with Seniors Take Action Coalition, the Kingston Community Health Center. And we got talking about what can we do to improve the mental health outcomes of our older adults in rural communities, recognizing that things are different when you live in a rural community. You don't have access to the same services, you're further isolated. In a lot of cases, older adults do not have the same types of supports of their children because their children have left, if you will, and have moved on with their lives. So they may not have the same kind of supports that one would come to expect in a larger center. So the idea really kind of started way back in 2016, and then the funding proposal went in, and the project only got underway in 2017. So we were talking about social isolation long before there was ever any COVID. And the fact is, some people say we almost had a premonition because
Yeah.
this project wrapped up in December 2019. The evaluation was done shortly thereafter, and discussions got underway about developing a toolkit just before COVID. So here we were in a situation where we had never experienced a global pandemic in the way that we had in our lifetime. And social isolation became something that became known to everyone. Whereas when we were doing the project, it was still just a conceptual thing. And mental health outcomes of people were things that, again, weren't really being talked about, but COVID really shone a light on that big time. So then the toolkit became almost even more important to develop.
Well, in a way, Celeste, I feel that social isolation took on an entirely new meaning,
It did. Yeah.
and it wasn't just for seniors, it was for everybody.
Yeah.
So who is this toolkit for?
So good question, Becky. The toolkit itself is a how-to manual, if you will, and it was designed so that we could share our story. Essentially, what happens is a lot of community-based organizations get funding, a grant, they deliver a great program, and then nobody ever hears about it. So when we were successful with this funding application and had what we thought was a very successful program, we wanted to share it with other communities. So the purpose of the toolkit is to share with organizations, service providers, and communities that are actually also providing services to older adults in their communities. And that way they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So by looking at the toolkit, they can just say, hey, I'd like to do XYZ. And they can refer to the toolkit, which is going to be located on the Dr. Kingston Community Health Center, right on their website. It's interactive. And people can actually go onto the toolkit and find out about things. They can download the toolkit if they wish in a print form, because some people still like print, or they can just kind of go in and see it as an interactive tool where they can access information. So it's to be shared to anybody who is interested in providing programming to older adults in their communities. That's the intended outcome.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that there are, well, I think I can think of several good reasons for somebody to access that toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
Each community has groups that instead of, they could work together and each work on an aspect of something in that toolkit as opposed to working over the top of each other, because a lot of times that does happen.
Yes.
And all with good intention. But sometimes, too much focus on one aspect of that toolkit may be detrimental to not being able to focus on something else that's really important as well. So
yeah, and that's why the way the toolkit has been designed is based on the 4 broad outcomes of that project. The first outcome was to work together collaboratively, because you can't do it alone. So it's important that many people are involved in this type of work. In any community work, you can't do it alone. Man is not an island, if you will.
No.
The second part was about building capacity. What do we need to do to build the capacity in our own community so that we have people knowledgeable about these issues, so that they in turn can support people who they encounter, just as a peer, as a friend, as a family member. The third was to actually do what we could to reduce the stigma associated with asking for help and the stigma associated with mental health and addictions, which we know is far reaching, and to actually start to normalize the conversation so that people were actually talking about this in the same way that they talk about having a bad knee. It's okay to be depressed from time to time. It's okay to feel lonely and isolated. It's okay to be dealing with an addiction. When I say it's okay, I'm meaning it's okay to talk about it.
Right.
And there is help available for people who want it. And the
Hmm.
last part was to actually look at developing some new creative programming. A lot of the programming that was offered were things that were already offered in other communities, best practices, if you will, things that had been adequately researched. So we knew we were delivering a product that was actually based on evidence and research. For example, we offered several versions of mental health first aid over the course of the 2 years. We offered four different courses. So 60 or 70 people received training in mental health first aid. We also offered other programs that were available through the Canadian Mental Health Association, as well as music care. So we offered programs that were actually available already, but we also decided we wanted to try out some new creative programs. And that's where the program like Seniors Connecting Through Technology was offered by Richmond Literacy Network. We offered the Villa Vignette program, was a collaboration intergenerational project between the local high school, elementary school, and one of the local nursing homes, where they actually met with residents and created storybooks. It was lovely. Yeah. So there was different dimensions of it. So the whole idea was, to offer different types of programs. And so the toolkit resembles the outcomes. So there's a chapter on each one of those outcomes, and everything that was done during that project, there's information available in the toolkit on it.
Yeah, and that's very important because I mean somebody could take one of those ideas and springboard something else off of it. Oh,
Absolutely.
that
That's the
and
intent.
that's exactly, and that actually is a great tool to have
Yeah.
because if you have somewhere to start, I mean, you always have to have somewhere to start.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't, they know what they want, but they don't actually know how to implement it. So in that case, they see that something's been done similar to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
And
that's the whole idea. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that you are probably one of the most perfect people to actually put together a toolkit because you're pretty on top of things, Celeste. So
Well, thanks, Becky. So, because I acted as a project consultant during the Mind Body Spirit project, they did ask me to develop the toolkit. So once the toolkit was developed, we said, okay, now what are we going to do with this? We have this toolkit. We got to get the word out.
yep.
So this was a partnership with the Kingston Community Health Center and the municipality of Richmond County. And Richmond County applied for an age-friendly grant last year, an age-friendly community grant, to try to develop a communication and dissemination plan for the toolkit. And that is kind of the phase we're in now. So the toolkit has been developed. It's now on the website. And now we're in the phase of launching it. So a number of Zoom presentations are being offered throughout the month of April to various groups,
Mm-hmm.
including senior safety coordinators, community health board coordinators, members of Aging Well coalitions across the province, and members of seniors clubs and seniors councils, to share with them the toolkits. And anybody who actually participates in a Zoom presentation, in addition to getting a kind of a, if you will, it's a Reader's Digest version of the toolkit, because you can't possibly go
No.
through all components of it. But then they have access to me as the consultant for the next couple of months if they have a question. So they can reach out via email or phone call and say, oh, I'd like to know more about that. So by participating in one of the Zoom presentations gives people another opportunity to kind of have some further conversation about it.
Yes, and Celeste, I know you're always open to conversation with people who need that sort of advice. I know that, and I've taken advice from you many times myself, as have many. So, I think that what you're doing here is a great service as well. And it serves the community well. And it's not just seniors anymore, a lot of young people as a result of COVID are roaming around looking for some way to get involved, which is really great to see. And I'm hoping that some of the younger groups will actually pick up the toolkit and take a look at it and say, wow, well, you know what, we could work on that. And it bridges some gaps. It's
Absolutely. And I
yeah.
mean, some of those programs are, although we offered them for older adults, mental health first aid, for example, is a program that is also available for people who work with youth.
Right.
So, I mean, if somebody else wanted to kind of explore some of those components of it, I mean, there's also a whole resource list, resource section at the back of the toolkit as well that actually has even samples of things that we would have done. Like one of the key components of this particular project was we had an advisory committee that was provided oversight for the 2 years of people from our community that work with older adults. So we even included the terms of reference, for example, so that if somebody wanted to create an advisory committee, they don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, so it gives everybody a place to start, a starting point.
Yeah.
And all good things start somewhere.
That's right. That's right.
So, you know, I think that the whole idea of involving seniors in anything is great. I'm all up for that anytime, anytime. You know, I've often said I'd like to let some seniors loose with some cameras and look at what they see through their eyes.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You
Great
know,
idea.
it certainly has been suggested to me a few times that you know, how about you get myself and my sisters together and we can have a talk about the old days? And I think that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Sort of beats isolation, all that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, one of the most important things about addressing issues of social isolation is to create opportunities for people to feel like they belong.
You're right.
And one of the ways that people belong is by joining things. So by
Right.
joining a course or by volunteering or even going to lunch with their friends. So the whole idea is that there's ways in which we can support older adults in our community so that they do feel like they belong, and it doesn't have to cost any money. You don't
Right.
need a program. It could just be, you know, reaching out and lending a hand or reaching out.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, the sky's the limit. And if you
It
have
is.
if you have the right playbook.
That's right.
toolkit.
And one of the most successful programs that we offered kind of in that innovative chapter, if you will, is called Around the Dinner Table.
Yes.
And that was
Yeah.
highly successful.
Yeah.
And one of our partner seniors organizations in Louisdale ran several very successful versions of this program where they brought together older adults, many of whom are not regular joiners, but they brought together over a meal, and there's nothing like breaking bread together and having conversations about the old days.
Yeah. And I recall watching some of those and thinking, wow, you know, they're really
Yeah.
having a great time.
Yeah, they sure
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we still do that. Not as much as we used to, of course, because of the situation with the pandemic. But I think you know, it's coming around again. I think
Yeah.
I have confidence, you
Yeah.
know, and hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you're going to be with this project for a little while longer, as you said.
Yeah.
So I will give details if it's okay with you on how to reach you.
Sure.
I will give details about where they can find the toolkit.
The toolkit is now live on the website, so
Yep.
people can actually view it. And as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of Zoom presentations that are being provided to folks throughout the province. But I'm also hoping that COVID permit to actually do an in-person presentation within Richmond County sometime later, maybe in June. And that will be promoted through Talil, and it'll also be promoted on our Seniors Take Action Coalition website, as well as the Kingston Center, so that people know when that's going to be happening. So we're hoping to be able to do that. If it doesn't lend itself to an in-person, we'll be creating another Zoom presentation for folks to participate in Richmond County as well, if anybody's interested.
So Celeste, I'd like to go to this website, as I'm sure everybody else would like to see how it works too. And if you could show us how to use it, that would be great.
Absolutely. So it's officially been launched now. So this is when you go to the link that will be provided. This is what will appear when you actually arrive at the Kingston Community Health Center website. So you'll see that this is what appears. So I just wanted to point out the artwork. I think the artwork is worth mentioning because this is artwork that was donated, not donated, but we were given permission to feature it as part of the Mind, Body, and Spirit project. It's a piece of artwork that was done by the late David Brooks, and his family gave us permission to use it for the toolkit. It's actually called Mind, Body, and Soul. So it was very fitting that it be used for this particular project. So I wanted to acknowledge that, and we're very thankful to the family for allowing us to, giving us permission to use that. So right now I'm going to click on where it says View Toolkit Online. So when you view the toolkit online, this is what's going to happen when you arrive there. So you're going to have several options when you arrive there. So you'll see that there are 6 chapters. It's been broken into chapters, or you can view the full toolkit. So right now we're just going to click on View the Full Toolkit. So you'll see it's loading now. So this is what's called like an interactive PDF e-reader format. So it allows people to kind of just view it at their leisure. And there's a number of icons up here, which I'm going to walk people through. So first and foremost, if a person doesn't like reading things on computer, they have the option to download this. So they can actually download the entire toolkit, which is 82 pages long, and then they can print it if that's what their preference. If they download it, then they can save it to a computer, for example. Or they may just want to kind of go to the print function right there and say, okay, I'm just going to print this and sit down in a big comfy armchair and read it, so they can print it. So then you'll notice on the far right, there's an icon that says full screen. That actually makes it larger, so it makes it easier to see. So then you're going to notice here, zoom in, which I'm going to show you once I advance to another page. So if you see that there's 2 arrows on the right-hand side, similar to the 2 arrows that are up there. One is just a single arrow, one is an arrow with a line across it. So if you were to click on the one with the line across it, it's going to take you to the last page. In the same way that you want to go back, it'll take you back to this page. However, if you want to just advance the pages and kind of read it online, you use the single arrow. So you'll notice it kind of gives you the same feel as though you're actually reading a book. You can hear the pages flip. So on this, you'll see the full table of contents. So again, this kind of gives you a snapshot view of what's in each of the chapters. So say, for example, you want to read about the mental health first aid training. Say, oh, I'd like to hear more about that you can see that's in chapter 2. So if that's what you want to do, then you may just choose to kind of go back. You may want to exit there, and you may want to go back and say, okay, I'm just going to go to chapter 2 because I kind of like to read more about that. So then you're going to see all the items that are in chapters 2. So essentially the chapters have been organized into 4 chapters that actually reflect what the outcomes were for this project. So the second chapter is all about building capacity, because one of the outcomes for the project was to have more people in our community feel confident about their knowledge and skills about mental health, addictions, seniors' mental health, social isolation, by either getting training in different things, or even by, we offered workshops to build capacity for people in the community to provide training. So we were talking about the mental health first aid. So again, when I clicked on that, that brought me to the back. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to use the page by page. So I'm going to take us, keep saying, because it was mental health first aid that we were curious about. There we go. So mental health first aid, and we're going to just zoom in here so that you can actually read it a little bit better. So mental health first aid, you can see right here that it's one of the ways that we chose to build capacity was by accessing the training offered through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. It's an evidence-based program. So it kind of provides you with some information, and then it actually gives you some ideas of places that you can actually go to access funding to provide that training. There's a link down here that takes you directly to the types of courses that are offered. So again, if you want to just download this, you could just download that section, or you could choose to just continue to read. So now we're going to go back again. So as I said, I showed you how to view the full toolkit, and then you could just walk through any one of the chapters of interest. So like, for example, the last chapter 6 is additional resources. And you can see right now that that's 25 pages long. So how that's been organized is it reflects what the chapters are like. So it goes through chapter 1 right through to 5, and any of the items that we felt that we wanted to provide additional information on are located in that. So for example, mental health first aid. One of the things that we did was we had actually offered some training, and I've provided a couple of infographics that are available through the Mental Health Commission. One of them is actually mental health first aid for seniors. Now, unfortunately, when we were offering this program, we weren't able to offer that option, but it is available now. But the thing about mental health first aid, although this toolkit was developed based on a project for older adults, many of these programs that address mental health or social isolation could be applied to any population. So for example, other people experience mental health issues and other people could benefit from mental health first aid training. For example, mental health first aid offers a youth program. So there may be, a school may want to access mental health first aid training for people that work with youth. So that kind of just gives you a little bit of a snapshot of what it looks like when you arrive there. So you can do the whole toolkit, or you can do it chapter by chapter. You can view it online, you can download it and add it to your computer and view it later, or you can print it. So we've given people lots of options.
Yeah, very well done, Celeste.
Yeah, we've tried to organize it in such a way that it would be easy for people to navigate, even though they may not be what you'd call computer experts. And that's the kind of functionality of this particular format. It kind of reads a bit like a book, and it's intuitive, so that it allows people to kind of think, okay, well, if you're going to be reading an e-reader, you're just going to flip the page. So it's the same sort of concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do that?
Well, the actual toolkit itself was developed, and I think I mentioned earlier on in the interview, the actual toolkit itself was the decision to develop the toolkit happened just before COVID. So right. we spent the time the first year actually developing the toolkit, pulling together all the pieces and resources so that it would be easily accessible. And then these last few months was getting ready to launch it, working with the person that does the website at the Kingston Center to come up with, pardon me, come up with the best way to kind of present it in a way that would be easily readable and accessible to people.
And it certainly is very reader friendly. And the visual is great because, of course, if you only wanted to, like you say, go through one chapter, even one chapter at a time, at least you know where you left off.
Exactly. And again, right here gives you the option to click in full screen, or you can also use that function.
Yeah.
And then again, you can advance it up here, or you can advance it here. And then this allows you to go back.
All right. Wow.
So this is a program that allows people to put things online so that it's easier to read. A lot of times when you're creating documents, the PDF is so large that when you try to email it to somebody, it doesn't have the kind of capacity in their emails. So we discovered this particular site, and we're actually using it now for our Better with Age newsletter as well. So again, the same sort of thing is that we actually have produced the Better with Age newsletter in this format, so people can read it that way. They can choose to print it or to download it. So we're using the same program for the Better with Age newsletter for Seniors Take Action Coalition.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Yeah, so there you have it. So well, I invite all the viewers to take some time and become familiar with the toolkit, because there may be some ideas that you come across that might be of interest to you. You might say, we'd like to pursue that program for our group that we're working with. And it would help you to kind of think about what you might want to do.
Right. And on top of that, you have right there, if you have any questions, please contact us.
Absolutely. There's an email provided that will go directly to the Kingston Center. And if there's specific questions, they'll be able to fan those questions out.
Yeah, well, that's great. So if anybody wants to contact the Kingston Center, just click on that little link, and that would be great.
Making it easy as possible for people.
It's all about ease of use.
Yeah, and again, just to kind of recap, one of the reasons that we decided to develop this cool toolkit and to launch it was because we felt we had been fortunate in that we had received funding to offer this program in Richmond County. And a lot of times organizations receive funding and do some really great work, and then nobody ever hears about it. So because we felt like we had a lot of success and there were a lot of lessons learned from this project, we wanted to make it available so others could benefit from it.
Well, that's sharing is caring, you know?
It sure is.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, Becky, for offering this opportunity to help us launch the toolkit at Talil.
Well,
And
anytime.
we'll look forward to having some viewers look at it and reach out if they have any questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Celeste.
You're quite welcome.
And anything else you have to share?
Always a pleasure to have conversations. And, I'm just really excited about the fact that we are able to share this toolkit. I'm really excited about the tremendous work that is being done in Richmond County and the leadership that's being taken by the Dr. Kingston Community Health Center to do great things for older adults, but also not only to support all older adults, but there's a lot to be said about accessing and celebrating the skills and expertise that we have in Richmond County. And this is a testament to that. Once people actually see it in its form and see all the great things that happen and all the wonderful people that participated in helping to deliver these programs, many of whom were older adults, they'll see the richness of the kinds of skills and talent that we have down there.
Well, let's face it, it's the older adults that lead the way.
It sure is, yeah.
And really always has been. So, I think that's pretty important to note.
On that note, I thank you for your time and for helping to showcase this important project.
Well, anything else you ever need to bring forward, you know where we are.
Okay, great. Okay,
have a great day,
thanks.
Celeste.
Okay, bye-bye.